7 painful signs you're not just chosen, you're chosen by shadow. There comes a moment in your life when the suffering no longer makes sense in the way the world has taught you to understand it. It's not just bad luck. It's not just a series of poor choices. It's not even karmic punishment. It feels ancient, almost like your pain has roots deeper than this lifetime. And if you felt that if you've ever sat alone in a dark room, questioning why the world seems so violently misaligned with your spirit, then maybe you're not just chosen. You're chosen by the shadow. Most people who talk about being chosen speak in terms of light gifts, intuition, spiritual leadership, compassion, divine purpose. But there's another path, one that rarely gets spoken about because it doesn't feel beautiful. It feels cursed. It feels like you were handpicked by something deeper than light. Something that doesn't smile, but tests you with storms, poisons, and betrayals. That is the realm of the shadow chosen. And the truth is, you don't choose it. It chooses you.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
The first painful sign is a recurring feeling that you were born into the wrong family or environment, not in a trivial way. You feel like a soul dropped into a battlefield, surrounded by people who never truly see you, or worse, try to suppress you. From a very young age, you might have felt isolated, misunderstood, or emotionally exiled. This isn't just family dysfunction, it's spiritual exile. You are not here to be nurtured by comfort. You were placed in chaos to awaken a different kind of power, the kind that cannot be forged in safety. And deep down, part of you knows this. You've watched others bloom in loving environments, and a part of you aches not because you're jealous, but because something inside you whispers, that was never meant for you. If this resonates, then let me ask you a question most are too afraid to answer. What if your suffering isn't a mistake? What if it's a forge? The second sign is the heaviness in your energy field that follows you, even when life is going well. You might have noticed that blessings never seem to come without cost. You could win something and immediately feel drained. You could meet someone new and soon be pulled into emotional chaos. There's a weight around you and you feel it. Some days you wake up and it's like gravity is stronger for you than others. But here's the hidden truth. You're carrying energies that aren't just yours. You are a vessel. The shadow does not pick the weak. It picks the ones strong enough to absorb pain, not just from themselves, but from the collective. Empathic? Yes, but deeper than that. You are a spiritual crucible. The shadow entrusts you to transmute wounds others cannot bear. That ache? That fog? That burden? It's a signal. A spiritual download in disguise. The third sign is that you faced betrayals that nearly broke your spirit, and yet, somehow, you kept going. Shadow chosen ones aren't just abandoned by others. They are often betrayed by the very people they would have died for. These betrayals aren't minor, they shatter timelines. Maybe a best friend who turned into an enemy. A lover who saw your light, used it, and discarded you. A mentor who envied you and silenced you. It's not just painful, it rewrites your sense of identity. But these betrayals are not punishments. They are initiations. The shadow chooses its vessels by watching how they bleed. Can you lose everything and still stay standing? Can your heart shatter, but your soul remain unyielding? That's the test. Because the shadow does not give you comfort, it gives you power. but power is earned through endurance. The fourth sign is that your emotions have extremes that scare you. You don't just feel sad. You fall into despair that feels like drowning in a black ocean. You don't just feel joy. You feel euphoric fire that could burn the world. These emotional surges are not disorders, they are indicators. But you are not emotionally unstable. You are spiritually volatile. You've been activated at levels most people never experience. Shadow chosen ones do not feel like the rest. Your emotions are raw because they are unfiltered. Your soul is in direct contact with the archetypal realms: suffering, creation, destruction, rebirth. You live inside myth, whether you realize it or not. That emotional intensity, it's a reminder that your path is not of this world. You were not sent here to be balanced. You were sent here to be initiated. Now, let's go deeper. The fifth sign is isolation, even when surrounded by people. You could be in a room full of friends and still feel utterly alone. It's as if no one can truly reach you. That's because they can't. Shadow-chosen souls carry a spiritual frequency that doesn't resonate with the surface world. You might laugh, hug, share space, but underneath, there's always that silent gap, that sense that no one sees the full you. And perhaps even scarier, you wonder if you even want to be seen. You keep parts of yourself buried so deep because you're afraid that if someone truly saw the raw chaos and divine darkness in your soul, they'd run. Or worse, try to fix you. But here's the truth: you were never meant to be understood. You were meant to be remembered by the ancient energies that marked you before this life even began. The sixth sign is the war within your own mind. Doubt, rage, confusion, days where you believe in yourself like a god, and nights where you feel like nothing but dust. This internal battle isn't a flaw, it's the battlefield itself. Shadow-chosen individuals are not given clarity. They are trained through uncertainty. Your mind is not broken, it's being sharpened. Each question you wrestle with is a blade carving deeper insight. But you are not weak for doubting. You are becoming stronger because of it. The gods do not train warriors with comfort. They use chaos. And so does the shadow. It isn't your enemy, it's your teacher. And finally, the seventh and most painful sign, the longing for home that never goes away. This is the most silent agony. You move through life seeking something, a place, a feeling, a frequency. But you never quite find it. Even at your happiest, there's a hollow ache. As if you were born with a memory of another realm, and this world just never quite matches it. Yet that longing is sacred. It is not homesickness, it is soul memory. You remember the dimension you were pulled from. You remember the energy of the place that forged you. That ache, it's the compass guiding you back to purpose. Because shadow-chosen souls don't belong to this world. They were sent here for a mission, a frequency disruption, a spiritual rebellion. That homesickness is your proof. Let me ask you something raw. What if your loneliness is not a flaw but evidence that you were made for something that does not yet exist in this world? When you begin to realize that all your pain has a pattern, that your story is not random, that's when the truth starts whispering to you. You were never meant to live an ordinary life, because you were never created by ordinary forces. The gift hidden in darkness, how the shadow builds the indestructible. We spend our lives running from the darkness, taught from childhood that light is safe, darkness is danger. Light is clarity, darkness is confusion. But the deepest truth is this: what you call darkness is not evil. It is raw, unrefined power. It is the origin of all transformation. Fire is born from darkness. Diamonds are formed in pressure. And the most indestructible souls, they are not born in temples bathed in light. They are built in places where no light survives. If you're shadow chosen, your life will often feel like a series of implosions. Everything you love, trust, or rely on will eventually collapse or abandon you. This isn't a curse, it's refinement. The shadow destroys your false identities before the world can worship them. It strips away your masks until you're left raw, unadorned, and terrifyingly real. Why? Because only the real you has the capacity to fulfill what you were sent here for. You don't learn strength by pretending to be strong. You learn it by being broken, again and again, until breaking becomes meaningless, until you stop fearing it. That's how the shadow trains you not to be immune to pain, but to become something larger than pain, something elemental. There's something brutally honest about the shadow's love. The light often comforts with illusion, you are perfect as you are. But the shadow whispers, you are more than this, and I'll tear you apart until you remember. The shadow doesn't flatter, it prepares. It turns your wounds into weapons, your loneliness into intuition, your shame into sacred insight, and your fear into fuel. Have you ever wondered why you attract the broken, the chaotic, the unstable? Shadow-chosen people are magnetic to pain because you're a mirror. When someone meets you, they unconsciously see the parts of themselves they've buried. You bring their shadows to the surface. And often, they will hate you for it. They'll project, they'll lash out, they'll leave. But none of that is about you. It's about the truth you carry. You don't just walk into a room. You shift the energy of that room without trying. And because of that, you are rarely loved in a conventional way. You are remembered and feared, and sometimes secretly revered. This is not a path of popularity. It's a path of spiritual potency. You're not here to win approval. You're here to crack illusions. And yet, despite all this pain, all this alienation, the shadow gives you something no light ever could: sovereignty. Not fake independence, true spiritual sovereignty. You begin to realize that you don't need to be saved. You don't need constant validation. You don't need to explain yourself to anyone. Because you've faced yourself. You've descended into the caves of your own being and survived. That's what makes you indestructible. Not the absence of weakness, but the intimacy with it. Eventually, something changes. The same darkness that once felt like it was consuming you begins to protect you. You develop an inner perimeter and aura. People sense it. They stop treating you like someone to fix. They start treating you like someone not to mess with. And not because you're harsh, but because you've merged with your shadow. And that makes you unpredictable to those still stuck in patterns. You are no longer readable by the old rules. But the greatest gift, it's subtle. One day you'll look back at everything that broke you and you won't feel resentment. You'll feel reverence. You'll see how each loss forced you inward, how each betrayal deepened your intuition, how each collapse created space for something far more real. And you'll realize something no ordinary person ever gets to say: the darkness made me whole. Here's a question no one wants to ask, but you must. If the most powerful version of you could only be built through agony, would you still choose comfort? The shadow never answers with words, but it answers with transformations. The unseen missions of the shadow chosen, why you're not meant to fit in. There comes a point where you stop asking, why don't I fit in? And you start asking, what was I sent here to disrupt? That's the beginning of your real mission as a shadow chosen one. You see, this isn't about rebellion for the sake of rebellion. This is spiritual insurgency. You weren't born to belong, you were born to break the unconscious patterns holding the world in stagnation. You've probably noticed how your very presence seems to disturb people. You say something simple, and suddenly there's tension. You ask one deep question, and others go silent or defensive. You show compassion to someone others judge, and suddenly you're seen as strange. That's not coincidence, it's resonance. Shadow chosen ones are coded with a frequency that destabilizes illusions. Even if you stay silent, your energy speaks volumes. You walk into a room, and everything false starts to tremble. And for that, you will often be pushed out. Not because people are cruel, but because they're protecting the reality they're not ready to question. Your mission isn't to be embraced. It's to be effective. You're not here to blend in, you're here to awaken. And awakening is rarely gentle. That's why the path of the shadow chosen is so lonely. Not because you're unworthy of love, but because real connection only comes when others are ready to face the parts of themselves you reflect. Most people seek comfort in community, but shadow chosen ones are often denied it. You try to find your people, but it never quite clicks. You join spiritual groups, communities, circles, and eventually feel like an outsider again. Why? Because you're not meant to stay in one place. Your energy is nomadic, catalytic. Like lightning, you strike where transformation is needed, but you don't linger. That's the design. You are not a settler. You are a shaker of foundations. You are spiritual wildfire. And yet there's a hidden longing, the desire to rest, to be understood without needing to explain every layer of your soul. And while rare, there will come moments where you find other shadow chosen ones. You'll recognize them not through words, but through frequency. They've bled like you. They've walked through their own abyss. They won't flinch at your darkness because they've made peace with their own. These aren't normal friendships. They are ancient reunions. And when they happen, you feel it. The sacred tension eases, if only for a while. But the mission doesn't stop. One of the hardest truths to accept is this: your pain has always been about more than you. It's not personal, it's archetypal. Your suffering rewires the collective. Every time you choose to stay conscious in the storm, you shift the energetic grid of the planet. Every time you transmute rage into wisdom, grief into grace, confusion into clarity, you send out signals, upgrades, keys. This is why the shadow chose you. Not because you were flawless, but because you could endure, process, and transform. You are a living code breaker. And that means you are a threat to systems built on unconsciousness. If you've ever wondered why the world seems to resist your authenticity, why people try to shame you into silence, gaslight your intuition, or dilute your intensity, it's because they are afraid, not of you, but of what you awaken within them. You make people feel things they buried for decades. You are a walking mirror, a truth bomb with skin. And the moment someone gets too close, they see their own unhealed wounds reflected in your eyes. But here's the paradox: the same world that rejects you needs you desperately. Not everyone will understand your presence, but the right ones will never forget it. You plant seeds they don't even realize are growing. Years from now, they may not remember your name, but something you said, something you embodied, will change their path forever. That is your unseen mission. You don't need a spotlight. You are the frequency shift. And the irony is, once you stop seeking a place to belong, you start to realize you belong everywhere and nowhere. You become sovereign, and the loneliness turns to clarity. The pain turns to prophecy. The chaos becomes your compass. Ask yourself, if your soul came here not to fit in but to fracture what no longer serves humanity, are you willing to keep going even when no one claps? The world doesn't need more light chasers. It needs more shadow bearers. Your darkness was the invitation, the final revelation of the shadow chosen. By now, you may feel both liberated and heavy. The truth has that effect, because once you realize your darkness wasn't a detour, but the doorway you can never go back to pretending. You were never meant to live in the middle. You were forged in extremes. And all this time, the very parts of yourself you thought disqualified you from divinity were the exact reasons you were chosen. The final revelation is this: your darkness was never the enemy. It was the invitation. You see, the universe doesn't evolve by comfort. It evolves through friction, through rupture, through those who dare to hold both shadow and light without collapsing. That's what you were made for. While others numb, deny, or chase escape, you were designed to descend into pain, into the subconscious, linked into the forgotten chambers of the soul, and return with wisdom that cannot be taught, only earned. That ache in your bones? It's ancestral. That chaos in your mind? It's multidimensional. And that weight in your chest? It's not just emotion, it's mission. You're carrying codes, memories, gifts that don't come alive in easy lives. That's why you were marked. Why the shadow called your name before you could even speak. Do you know what it means to carry divine contradiction? It means you are both storm and stillness. You can devastate and resurrect. You know how to burn and how to bloom. That's the paradox of the shadow chosen. You are a walking portal, not to heaven, not to hell, but to truth unfiltered, unrefined, untamed. This world is not gentle with people like you. It doesn't give medals for spiritual endurance. It won't always recognize your strength. And yet, here you are still breathing, still feeling, still knowing. That is power. That is devotion. That is divine resistance. Most people follow paths laid out for them, but shadow-chosen ones blaze their own. You've walked away from what's normal, not because you wanted to, but because it could not contain you. You've lost relationships, opportunities, entire identities because your soul refused to shrink. And now you are becoming what you were always meant to be, someone who does not beg for permission to exist, someone who is not afraid to be feared, and someone who carries darkness with dignity. There's one last thing the shadow wants you to understand before you continue this journey. You are not broken. You are becoming the one who can stand in rooms of silence and still radiate truth. Becoming the one who no longer seeks saving, but shows others how to save themselves. Becoming the living proof that destruction is not the opposite of creation, it is the precursor to it. This is your call to stop hiding, stop diluting, Stop apologizing for being too deep, too intense, too different. You were not sent here to blend. You were sent here to pierce. You are not just chosen. You are chosen by shadow. And that means the storm you carry isn't a burden, it's a banner. Hold it high. Because somewhere out there, another soul is watching you. And when they see you walk through darkness unshaken, they remember who they are too. You are the invitation for others to awaken. And now you awaken. The path doesn't end here. It begins. Welcome home, Shadow Bearer.